Outside the school, headlines roar. Inside, Zara's chest whispers and the room tilts. Camille drops to her knees in a white dress, tracing a paper star. In for 4, out for 6. 40 minutes to the vote. Save her breath or save her crown. Either way, everything breaks. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe, tap like and share this video. The more voices we reach, the louder these stories become. And drop your city in the comments. Let's see where love finds us. The glass on the 37th floor turned the city into a spreadsheet. Columns of light, traffic cells red-flagged by rain. Camille Stone faced none of it. She stood with her shoulders squared to the conference table, curves contained by a white sheath dress that fit like a decision. Blonde hair in a severe twist, blue eyes flat with resolve. She tapped one manicured nail on a manila folder. Operations met the numbers, she said. Leadership didn't. Malik Carter kept his hands open and visible, the way he'd learned to when people in power were watching. 6'2", broad-shouldered from years of hauling equipment before he'd learned cloud diagrams, he looked like a man built to carry weight and set it down gently. My team beat every KPI for 8 quarters, he said. We did it without grinding people to dust. That used to matter at Ardent Dynamics. It still matters, Camille replied. Her voice didn't rise. It never had to. But output is one axis. Standards are the other. You called a mandatory quiet hour and turned off notifications for the entire unit, because 2 engineers were shaking at their desks. A day of silence work is not a policy, she said, sliding the folder toward him. Severance, 30 minutes to transition your badges. He felt the room tilt. He had promised himself he would not beg. Miss Stone, my daughter's medication. We're extending benefits through month end, she said. That's already more than policy requires. Zara is 7. His voice went quiet. Her lungs flare without warning. The steroid isn't optional. Neither is culture. She didn't blink. Something broke against the back of his teeth. Anger, grief, terror, and washed back down. He nodded because it was the only gesture that didn't feel like cracking open. He stood, the chair legs whispering their small protest. You're building a tower so tall you can't hear the people inside it, he said. From up there, they're dots. Her mouth moved a millimeter, not quite flinch, not quite smile. 30 minutes, Mr. Carter. He left the courtroom bright room for the fluorescent ordinary of the floor. The open office hushed as he walked to his desk. Screens glowed with code, headphones tilted. Everyone knew the look of a cardboard box. It had its own gravity. Pavani lifted her head first. No, she said, already shaking it. No, Malik. It's fine, he lied. A lie needed a second sentence to stand. I'll text the handoff notes. He packed the life you're not supposed to bring to work. The paper handprint that read Dad in purple marker, a ribbon bracelet from a school fair, a cracked mug that still said Best. He wrapped the mug in his spare hoodie and tried not to see the way Pavani's eyes glossed. Come by my place, okay? She whispered. I'll cook. You can pretend to be grateful. He found a laugh that didn't belong to him, set it down between them, and nodded. On his way out, he stopped at IT, surrendered his badge, his laptop, the small metal tether that had kept food on his table and medicine in his daughter's inhaler. The elevator doors closed on faces he didn't want to memorize in goodbye. Outside, rain beaded on his lashes. The bus stop shelter smelled like pennies and wet nylon. He balanced the box on his knee and opened the folder. Numbers, legal paragraphs, an amount that looked big until he stacked it against rent and pharmacy receipts in his head. His phone vibrated. A reminder, pick up Zara at 3:05, clinic at 4, inhaler refill. He changed the clinic to next week. He could not afford the refill today. At school, Zara burst from the door with a book bag and a grin that always hit him like sunlight. Daddy, we did a science cloud, she said, hopping in place. It was a jar with hot water and we put ice on top, and the teacher said, watch the air turn into a story. Can air tell stories? He swallowed. The best ones. She looked at the box in his hand. You brought your office home. Yeah, Bug. Did they say the quiet hour was good, she asked, because you said grown-ups need quiet like rooms need doors. He hesitated. They said other things. That's silly, she decided, the way 7 decides. Grown-ups get loud and then forget how to breathe. She tapped his chest with a small finger. In for 4, out for 6. Remember? We practiced. She did the counts with him, serious as a physician. By the time they finished, the ache behind his ribs had taken a step back. They walked the 6 blocks to the apartment, past the bodega where the bell stuck, past the hair-braiding salon whose posters never changed, past the laundromat where someone always had coins to share. Their place was 2 rooms and a mercy. He warmed soup that was more water than recipe, cut an apple thin, watched her colour at the table with a focus that always felt like prayer. The inhaler rattled when she shook it. He counted doses without meaning to. "Can we play the star game tonight?" she asked around a spoon. "Where we say one brave thing we did and one brave thing we'll do?" "We can." "I did a brave thing already. I asked the boy who pushes in line to stop, and he did, and I didn't even cry." "Proud of you." He meant it down to the marrow. "What will you do brave?" she asked. He looked at the stack of envelopes on the counter, pharmacy second notice, rent due, then at the box on the floor, then at her. "I'm going to write a letter," he said. "To who?" "To someone who forgot what people sound like." "Will you use your calm voice?" she asked. "I'll try." She nodded, satisfied. "Then it will work." She hopped off the chair. "Also my chest is whispering," she said, casual like weather. "How loud?" "Like a kitten," she said, which meant small but present. He set the spacer, counted with her again, watched her shoulders loosen. When she slept, under the blanket his mother had crocheted before her hands got stiff, he opened his old personal laptop. The K key stuck, the fan whined. He put the cursor at the top of a new email and typed, "Miss Stone." He stared at the 2 words until their edges frayed. He closed his eyes and pictured the conference room, the way she hadn't needed to raise her voice to cut him in half. He pictured the white dress like armor and the curve of it like a dare. He deleted the greeting and started again. "Camille." No, he wasn't interested in fistfights with ghosts. He typed, "Miss Stone, you don't know me beyond a file, but I wanted you to know what breath costs." He sat back. His finger hovered. He thought of every time he'd told his team, "Write it down if your hands are shaking." He began, "You said leadership is standards. Here is mine, that the people who build your product get to be human while they do it. Quiet hour was a door we closed so panic couldn't get in. The work did not die at our feet, it grew legs. You won't feel my daughter's lungs tighten when rain hits. You won't hear the hiss of the spacer in the dark. You won't count doses the way I count dollars." But tonight, she told me, grown-ups get loud and forget how to breathe. And then she made me breathe with her, in for 4, out for 6, and I remembered what we were doing it all for. I'm not asking for my job back. I'm telling you that your choices reach kitchens you have never seen. If you must be steel, be a bridge and not a cage. He stopped. The cursor blinked like a pulse. He didn't send it. He saved it to drafts, closed the lid, and put his forehead on his arms while the apartment clicked and sighed, and the city breathed. Across town, the tower's top floor held its light like a lighthouse that had forgotten who it was meant to save. Camille stood with her back to the glass, shoes abandoned, the ache from the day riding up her calves. The rain made the airport lights smear into comets. She liked numbers because they didn't cry. She liked policy because it didn't ask for permission. The folder from that morning lay open on the console table. HR's clean signature, legal's tidy paragraph, the exit interview line blank. She'd told herself she fired for culture, that he was a threat to the discipline she'd spent 3 years soldering into the bones of Ardent. But the image that kept returning wasn't his challenge across the table. It was the way his hands had stayed open, palms visible, like someone promising he wasn't a danger, like someone accustomed to promising that. Her phone buzzed, a calendar alert, Morrison, 8:30. Investor check-in, the kind of meeting that stole hours and returned cents. Another buzz, Mother. She let it go to voicemail, already knowing the script. "You cannot be soft, Camille. Softness bleeds." Her mother's jewelry clicked against glass when she gestured. All her life, the women who taught her power had taught her hardness too, as if the two were welded. She poured herself water and watched the men on the loading dock across the way move like chess pieces under sodium lights. One passed the other a thermos and closed a palm around the other man's shoulder in a single unguarded bracket of care. She looked away. Her inbox was a canyon. She skimmed, triaged, fired off answers that made other answers necessary. When the subject line appeared, "What breath costs?" her eye caught on it the way you catch a step you didn't see. The sender, a personal address, not company. Her hand hovered. She could forward it to legal unopened. She could delete and sleep. She opened it. The first line politely refused to flatter her. By the third line, she was pressing the edge of the desk with the heel of her hand, as if the wood could remind her where she ended. She read quiet hour was a door, and thought of the way noise had been currency in her childhood. Whoever could hold it the longest won. She read in for 4, out for 6, and before she could stop herself, matched the count to her breath. The email ended without a plea. It simply laid a thing on her desk and walked away. She stared at the city as if it could answer, but the city only shone. At 3:07 a.m., Malik woke with the sense of having been pushed. The room hummed with fridge and rain. He opened the laptop. The draft waited, the blinking cursor more patient than any living thing. He added one sentence. P.S. My daughter says grown-ups forget how to breathe. If you find a moment tomorrow to do nothing but count to 4 and back to 6, you'll understand more about leadership than any memo I could write. He hovered, then hit send. Across the river of lights on the top floor, a blue dot blinked onto Camille's screen. She didn't open it. Not yet. She stood in the dark with the rain like static and counted, in for 4, out for 6, until something in her chest unhooked a fraction of an inch. The room did not change. The city did not kneel. But the breath did what breath always does when given permission. It made space. Rain combed the city into straight lines by morning, the highways running like glossy black ribbons beneath the tower. Camille watched the bands of traffic slide from her office, palms on the cool glass, counting without meaning to. Inhale 4, exhale 6, until her shoulders stopped trying to live around her ears. The subject line he'd written, "What breath costs," had lodged behind her breastbone like a coin. She could feel it when she moved. At 8:30, Morrison took the end chair in the investment review and spread his hands like a man blessing a table. Margins ticked up, he said, but Byrne is flirting with the line. We can't indulge experiments. We already are, Camille said. We're experimenting with burnout. A ripple went down the room. She didn't raise her voice. 2 teams will pilot a 10 quiet. 10 minutes at the top of every hour with notifications off, managers shielding the block. 1 week. Measure throughput, defect rates, help desk tickets. Feels soft, operations muttered. Feels measurable, she answered. And if it fails, we can show it failed. Morrison's smile had too many teeth. And the Carter situation? Of course he knew. Everything travelled in this building. Handled according to policy, she said, crisp. The part of her that had hit send on 6-figure wire transfers without blinking wanted to click a button and fix the aching specifics. The part that wrote policy knew there were walls for a reason. In for 4, out for 6. Next item. She didn't open his email again until the room had emptied and the last jacket had stopped whispering against the glass door. It read like a man who had found the line where pride and fear shake hands. It did not beg. It simply named a cost she had never had to pay. On the south side, Malik coaxed Zara's braids into even parts, hands gentle as the first minutes of daylight. Too tight? He asked, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Just right. She bared teeth at her reflection, tiger fierce. The wheeze was faint this morning. They'd stretched the doses, counted droplets like coins. After drop-off, he swallowed the hollow and rode the bus to the clinic pharmacy with a folder of forms and a face he practiced in the glass. Polite, tired, unthreatening. The line smelled like umbrellas and lemon cleaner. When it was his turn, the pharmacist, Lena, her badge read, pulled up the file and winced. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. Without active coverage, the budesonide runs 900 for 2 weeks. He knew the number already. It still blew through him like a cold door. Can I do half? She lowered her voice, eyes kind but bound. Dosing doesn't work like that. I can give you a sample inhaler, but the steroid is the control. There's manufacturer assistance. It takes a few days. A few days is a luxury, he said softly. He thought of the sound she made when her chest got tight, a kitten pressed into a bell. Lena's mouth softened. She ducked into the back and returned with a small box. This buys you 2 nights, she said, setting it on the counter like contraband. Fill out the assistance forms. I'll flag your file to Rush. Outside, the sky had peeled itself to a lighter grey. He stood under the awning with the box in his pocket and counted to 4 and back to 6 until the world steadied enough to move. Back uptown, Camille called HR. Send me the last 12 months of terminations, roles, performance, reasons. Also track where they landed if we know. A pause. We don't. Track outcomes after separation. Start. She listened to the silence widen on the other end. Have legal draft a hardship fund proposal. One-time grants for acute medical crises for dependents. A pilot. $250,000 to start. Camille, that opens the door to helping the people who make the company run, she said. We can build a door with hinges. Legal will love the hinges. Is this about... It's about being able to look my engineers in the eye, she said, and ended the call before the word soft could be shaped into a weapon. By 5, the rain had given up, and the streets were a slick map. She told herself she was driving to clear her head, and found herself near the clinic anyway, her car's display blooming directions she hadn't requested. She parked 2 blocks away because shame was a precise instrument and she knew how to wield it. When she entered the pharmacy, she didn't look at her reflection in the dark window. Lena glanced up and assessed her in a single sweep, the dress that didn't know this neighborhood, the heels that didn't ask permission, the face that had never waited under fluorescent lights for good news. Can I help you? I'd like to put money on an account, Camille said. Not for a person, for a category. Ma'am? For pediatric steroid prescriptions when assistance is pending. She set her card on the counter and her gaze somewhere behind Lena's shoulder so she wouldn't use her eyes like a lever. If that's a thing we can do. Lena blinked. We have a community tab. Usually it's $10 at a time, neighbor stuff. You're asking to institutionalize it. I'm asking to cover breath. Camille kept her hands visible on the counter. Set a cap. Make a ledger, restrict it to the steroid line, no names come to me. You a donor? Suspicion and hope braided in Lena's voice. A citizen, Camille said, which was not the truth and not the truth. 10,000 to start. Lena straightened, respect replacing the calculus. I'll set it as a pharmacy-held fund. We'll apply it only when assistance is in progress or medical necessity is signed. She tapped keys. We call it what? Camille paused. The world had given her titles. None of them fit this. The Quiet Hour, she said finally. Lena smiled. Okay then, the Quiet Hour is live. Driving home, Camille passed the playground where girls in puffy coats chased each other over wet mulch. For a moment she let herself want the simpler math of tag. Her mother called. Camille let it ring out, then listened to the voicemail. You cannot lead with your heart, darling. It's unreliable. The word darling was an expensive coat her mother wore over cold rooms. At her apartment, she opened her laptop to write a reply to the email she was not supposed to have read. She typed, deleted, typed again. Mr. Carter, policy was the truth I used as a weapon. I'm interrogating my arsenal. Delete. Arrogant. Try again. Malik, no. She settled on. Mr. Carter, I read your note more than once. I heard the counting you wrote between the lines. I won't ask you to teach me breath. I'll learn it. I can't fix what I broke. I can build something different in its place. She didn't send it. Not because she didn't mean it, but because she had learned the cost of words outpacing behavior. She left the draft open like a window and went to the kitchen to burn a pan of eggs she had no appetite for. The next day, after drop-off, Malik returned to the pharmacy with his forms shaking at the corners. Lena's whole face brightened when she saw him. You're in luck, she said, like announcing a weather change. Assistance is processing, and someone started a fund for kids on steroids. It'll cover you until the paperwork lands. He stared. Who? Community, she said and tapped the receipt. Come back Friday. We'll have the full bottle ready. He stepped outside, blinking like he'd come up from underwater. The bench under the bus sign never looked like a bench. It was an altar people knelt at without meaning to. He sat, put his head in his hands and let the world tilt. For the first time in weeks, the future wasn't a door locked from the other side. On the 37th floor, Camille took the first set of measurements on the 10 quiet pilot. Defects dipped. Tickets dipped. One manager wrote, astonished, I got more from my team in 6 hours than I've gotten in 2 weeks. She printed the email and slid it under Morrison's door without a note. That evening she parked 2 blocks away again. She told herself she just wanted to see the ledger in action, to confirm she had not made a mess with her attempt at mercy. Through the pharmacy's glass she saw him, broad shoulders in a second-hand jacket, the tilt of a man who lived with gravity closely. He turned when the bell chimed and their eyes collided through the reflection. He didn't move toward her. He didn't move away. He touched the box in his pocket as if to confirm it was real, then tipped 2 fingers in a thank you he couldn't be sure she deserved. She lifted her hand a fraction and left before either of them had to name what had happened. Policy and breath, ledger and lungs touching at a point called survival. At a red light, she finally opened her draft to him and added 1 line. I'm learning the difference between steel that cages and steel that bridges. If you have more to teach, I'm listening. She still didn't send it. She let the light turn green, and when she turned left, the city opened like a lung. Don't forget to subscribe for more intense cinematic love stories. Your click helps us make the next chapter. The 10 Quiet pilot turned the bullpen into something Camille had never seen in a tech company, a room that sounded like thinking. At 10 a.m., browser tabs stopped blooming, Slack pings went flat, chairs stilled. She stood by the glass and refused to fill the silence with her presence. Inhale 4, exhale 6. When the bell on someone's phone chimed the minute, keyboards woke like rain on roofs. Her inbox chimed with a manager's note. Defects down 22% since Monday. People look human. She forwarded the data to ops with a line, measure before you mock, and took the elevator down to a floor she rarely visited. Engineers glanced up, startled, then returned to their work. Someone had taped a post-it to a column. Quiet hour equals breath back. It wasn't a revolution, it was a hinge. On the south side, Malik watched Zara pack her library tote like a professional. She slid in a glitter glue star she'd made at school. 5 points, each with a number along the edge. My breathing star, she explained. You trace the points and count. Miss B called it finding your inside room. He choked on how much he loved that woman and her metaphors. Inside room, he repeated, zipping the bag. We're stealing that. The Ballard branch still smelled like summer reading, even in winter. Paper, carpet, old glue. The children's table was chaos in the holy way. Markers without caps, tape dispensers scarred by teeth. Zara set up shop like a foreman. Do you want to make a star? She asked the first kid within range. You breathe while you make it. That's how the magic gets stuck. He sat behind her on a too-small chair and filled out 1 more assistance form on his phone while she folded points for kids whose hands weren't sure. Between emails, he checked the pharmacy tab again just to make sure it hadn't been a hallucination. It was still there, the quiet hour, applied on his receipt like a signature in pencil. Breath paid, not owed. Across town, Camille's assistant poked his head in. Board prep moved to Friday, Nathan said. Also, Morrison asked for the quiet pilot metrics without the marketing gloss. Send him the raw, she said, and the method so he can critique it like a grown-up. Nathan hovered. Legal's asking if you want a cap on the hardship fund. Cap it high, she said. Then tell legal to draft criteria we can actually apply. Camille? Nathan asked, softer. You're different. She considered a denial and found she didn't have the breath to defend who she had been. I'm learning, she said, and I'm late for my own education. She didn't mean to end up at the library. She told herself she'd stop at the cafe next door for a double espresso and read her board binder. But the children's hour song, Clap, Snap, Clap, carried through the glass, and she looked in on impulse, the way a person looks at a lit window and makes herself a little story. There he was, shoulders hunched to fit the tiny chair, and there she was, at the centre of a starburst of paper and kids, declaring, in for 4, out for 6, like a tiny conductor. Zara saw Camille first. Children always noticed the thing adults pretended not to see. You, Zara said, as if greeting a weather pattern she'd been promised. You have still eyes. Camille should have retreated. She'd been leaving help like a thief and planned to keep it that way, but the crowd of children parted like they had been told a story about someone arriving. I'm interrupting, she said, too formal for tiny chairs. You can sit, Zara said, patting a stool. This is a star. You trace and breathe. You look like you forget. Camille sat. The stool creaked under her curves, an indignity she let stand. I do, she said, forget. Zara traced 1 point slow. People with boss hair forget the most, she confided. Boss hair, Camille repeated, and felt something warm and wild wrinkle under the armour she wore like skin. Malik turned at the sound of her voice and the crease of it. He stood too fast, bumping his knee on the table. Every part of him that was father flared. Protect, assess, remove. Every part that had walked out of a conference room 3 weeks ago without throwing a chair flared too. Be careful with yourself. "Miss Stone," he said, the vowels flat. "Mr. Carter," she said, like a man in a court might say, "Your Honor." Zara examined their faces like a scientist. "Do you know each other?" she asked, delighted. "Did you go to the same breathing school?" "We worked together," Malik said. He looked at Camille. "We're in a kid's room, no corporate." "I didn't bring any," she said, and meant it. No policy, no defense, just apology crowding her throat and looking for a door. Zara shoved a folded star toward her. "You can keep this," she said, "so you don't make your people hold their breath." Camille took it between forefinger and thumb as if it might burn or bless. "Thank you," she said. "I don't want them to." "Good." Zara cocked her head. "Are you mean?" "Daddy says you were mean at your job, but he didn't say you were mean in your heart." Camille felt heat rise up her neck. She deserved worse and was grateful for the exactness of children. "I was mean with rules," she said carefully, "even when I didn't need to be." "Then fix it," Zara said simply, turning to a new child. "That's how you say sorry." Malik blew out a laugh that had fatigue braided in. "We're working on it, Bug." "I am," Camille said, and for the first time since she typed the word policy in an email at 23, the word felt like a promise instead of a weapon. "I'm trying to build things instead of just break them." "Bridges," Zara said, pleased. "We're making a paper bridge at school next week. Ms. B says bridges are promises you can walk on." Malik met Camille's eyes over the top of Zara's head. "If you're looking for absolution," he said quietly, "I don't have any to hand out." "I came for the library," Camille lied. "You came for breath," he said. She held his gaze and let the truth stand without being asked for more. "May I talk to you after this?" she asked. "Outside, where the carpet doesn't listen." He nodded because saying no would have made him feel small in a way he had promised himself to stop accepting. "Z," he called, 10-minute rap. They met by the bulletin board where flyers for free tax help and a lost terrarium overlapped. She kept her hands in plain sight. "I'm sorry," she said, the words unadorned. "Not sorry that. Not sorry, but I was wrong. I confused hardness with strength and policy with truth." He waited. He had learned not to accept a sorry that stopped at the threshold. She continued. "I started a fund at the pharmacy," she said, and flushed at how small it sounded when said aloud. "I'm piloting quiet blocks here and making them permanent if the numbers hold. I asked HR for a list of every termination in the last year. We don't track outcomes, we will." "That ledger saved us," he said, 2 nights ago and again this morning. "I didn't intend for you to know it was me." "I don't," he said. "I know the name they gave it, and I know you looking at my daughter like you recognize the ground under her. That's enough." "Don't make me the angel," she said quickly. "Don't make yourself the villain," he returned, just as quick. "We're people. We're messy. She believes in bridges. She's already crossing to you." Zara barreled into the space between them with a flurry of crayons. "Ms. Boss Hare," she announced, "do you want to come to my science show next week? We will make clouds and then they rain. Daddy says it's only water pretending to be brave." Camille glanced at Malik. "Invitations require parental consent," she said, trying for light. "She invites bus drivers," Malik said. "We don't have a velvet rope." "Then yes," Camille heard herself say. "If I come, I sit in the back. I clap the loudest, and if your chest whispers, I have a star." Zara nodded, satisfied with logistics. "Okay." They stepped into winter light. The sky was the color of bureaucracy. Malik tucked Zara's scarf around her mouth and turned back to Camille. "There's a board meeting Friday," he said. "Quiet hour metrics will make someone mad. Hardship funds will make someone madder." "Morrison," she said, and the name tasted like old pennies. "He thinks leadership is the loudest person in the room. I used to agree." "What will you do when he calls it soft?" "Tell him soft doesn't break," she said. "It bends and weathers and still holds weight." He lifted a shoulder. "Bring numbers and a story," he said. "Men like Morrison never believe one without the other." "I have both now," she said, thinking of the post-it and the ledger and a girl with a star. Before they parted, Zara tugged Camille's sleeve. "Your eyes aren't still anymore," she reported. "They're moving like water. That's good. Water is how you know a thing is alive. Camille put a hand over the child's mittened fist. The softness of it undid a stubborn knot she had tied years ago and forgotten. "Thank you for reminding me," she said. As they walked away, Malik pivoted once, as if deciding a thing mid-step. "I don't want your job back," he said. "Not if it means owing you something I can't pay. But if you ever want to build a people function that isn't the last item on a cost report, call me. I can help you design it so it survives men like Morrison." "I'll call," she said. "Not to wipe a debt, but to build something a girl with a star could be proud of when she's 20. He nodded, wary and warmed, and led his daughter down the Salt Street steps to the bus. Camille watched them go until the bus sighed and moved. In her pocket, the paper star was already losing its crispness from the heat of her hand. Back in her office, she put the star on the corner of her desk where she used to keep a stress stone she never touched. She opened a blank document titled Board Friday and wrote, "Productivity plus 18% in pilot, defects down, tickets down, human retention up." Then she added a line no board deck had ever seen in this building. "If profit is breath, this is how we keep the lungs from collapsing." Across town, Zara's head found Malik's shoulder on the bus as the city slid by in strips of light. "She's not mean in her heart," Zara murmured, almost asleep. She just forgot how to breathe. "She's remembering," he said. "People can," Zara said with the steady certainty of 7, "if someone sits beside them and counts." The morning of the board review tasted like a penny on Camille's tongue, metal and warning. She stood in her office, jacket still on the chair, paper star on her desk, where a stress stone used to sit. Nathan hovered at the door with a stack of binders and a face that said storm. "Morrison asked for Raw plus manager emails," he said. "He can have both," Camille replied. "We don't hide good news." "And he's brought Leach from Ops to testify missed timelines," Nathan added. Wince baked in. "We didn't miss timelines," she said. "We stopped treating panic like strategy." Nathan's gaze slid to the star. "You're bringing that?" "In my pocket," she said, sliding it in. "Insurance." On the south side, Malik fastened Zara's purple coat and smoothed the front like he could iron the morning into behaving. "Science show today," she reminded him, as if a galaxy could forget its own sun. "Clouds are just water pretending to be brave." He kissed her forehead. "I'll be there, front row, loud clap." "You always clap loud," she said, pleased, like a friendly thunder. At 9:03, Camille entered the boardroom. The mahogany had been polished to a sermon. Morrison occupied the far end like a flag planted. His smile did not reach his eyes. "Good morning," Camille said, taking her seat. "Before we start, I've distributed the 10 quiet pilot results and method. Throughput up 18%. Defects down 22. Help desk tickets down 19. No changes in burn." Morrison steepled his fingers. "And the missed delivery for client Dovetail?" "Pulled in 72 hours ahead," she said evenly. Precision improved when panic left the room. A few board members leaned in despite themselves. Camille clicked to the next slide. A line graph that looked like a breath finally taken. "This is what happens when people get 10 minutes to think per hour. We are not paying for silence. We are buying clarity." Jennifer Walsh's pen scratched approval. David Chen nodded once. Morrison adjusted his cufflink. "And the so-called hardship fund," he asked. "What governance protects us from sentiment?" "Legal has criteria," Camille said. "Acute medical crises for dependents, limit per case, clear approval chain. Transparent ledger. I propose we seed it at $250,000. We will report quarterly on disbursements." She paused. "We will also, because culture is a balance sheet, publish attrition and rehiring costs avoided." Morrison's mouth tightened. And what motivated this sudden philanthropy? Truth gathered in her throat like light. "An email," she said, "from a former employee who reminded me that policy can be a weapon if you swing it blind. No names," she added to still the question forming. "Only costs measured in breath." "You're running a company, not a clinic," Morrison said. "Investors do not buy empathy. They buy outcomes," she countered. "Ask Dovetail, ask Ops, ask the managers who wrote." She tapped a printed note. "I got more from my team in 6 hours than 2 weeks. He let silence lengthen until it threatened to turn on her. "You know what else investors buy?" he said finally, and lifted a folder like a magician about to disappoint. He slid a photo across the table. Grainy, taken through glass, it was Camille at a pharmacy counter, head slightly bowed. "You're entitled to buy aspirin, Camille," he said softly. "You are not entitled to start private tabs with corporate funds for ex-employees you personally fired, then visit those tabs under cover of night." A prickle rolled down her arms. "Corporate funds were not used," she said. "It's a community ledger held by the pharmacy, open to any child whose assistance is pending. I asked legal how I could support something like that as a citizen. They advised. I obeyed. Coincidentally benefiting a former report," he said, savouring report like a bruise. "Coincidentally near his home. Coincidentally after he sent you an email. Coincidence and compassion can coexist," she said. "We can be precise and still be human." She met each pair of eyes. No APIs were written to direct funds to any one family. No names came to my desk. I made sure of it. The General Counsel cleared her throat. "We've reviewed Miss Stone's actions. As framed, the fund is separate from company accounts. No FCPA, no related party transactions. The only risk is optics." "Optics are what we sell," Morrison snapped. "Is Miss Stone leading with her head or her heart?" Camille rested her palms on the table. "Both," she said. "One without the other built a tower where people held their breath. I'm done with that building." David Chen looked around. "I propose an independent review of both initiatives, 10 Quiet and the Hardship Fund, completed by Monday. Until then, no changes to leadership." "Second," Jennifer said. "Voted," Morrison barked, too fast. Hands rose. 7-5. He smiled like a man who'd been denied dessert and already planned to raid the kitchen. "We'll revisit Monday, publicly if necessary." The meeting adjourned. In the hallway, Nathan touched her sleeve. "You okay?" "I'm breathing," she said, surprised to find it true. Her phone buzzed. A text from Malik. "Science show at 1:30. We'll save you a seat in the last row." "No velvet rope." She typed back, "Be there. Bring thunder." At the elementary school, the multi-purpose room smelled like gym floor and triumph. Construction paper cumulus clouds hung from the ceiling by fishing line. A banner read "Weather Wonders" in letters that had lived and died by glitter. Parents arranged themselves in careful pride. Children in paper name tags surged like tide. Camille slipped into the last row, as promised. She felt wrong in the folding chair, too polished, too pressed, but then Zara saw her and waved so hard her bracelet nearly flew. Camille waved back, small and guilty, and flayed open. The science began. Jars of hot water, plates of ice, hairspray spritzed to seed condensation. "Watch the air turn into a story," the teacher said, and the room gasped as clouds bloomed in glass. Malik watched Zara trace her breathing star as she talked. "Brave water," she mouthed, like a charm. He believed in charms no more than he believed in luck, but he believed in practice, and they had practiced. Halfway through the demonstration, a kid bumped a jar. Steam rolled across the table. The room whooped. Zara smiled too big, excitement and startle, and then the smile folded. The kitten sound started small. Malik was already moving, pocketing the spacer, the inhaler, the calm voice. "I got you, Z," he said, kneeling. "In for 4. The Count snagged. Her eyes teared with effort. The room closed a little. He tilted the spacer. A small cough became a stubborn one. Camille was there before she could justify it. "May I?" she asked, asking him, not reaching until he nodded once. She knelt, white dress be damned, and set her voice at the frequency of unfrightening. "Zara," she said softly, "it's Miss Boss Hair. I forgot how to breathe today, too. Can you show me?" It was the right vanity. Zara straightened a fraction. Camille lifted the paper star from her pocket. "We go slow," she said, and traced with her finger. "Up on 1, hold on 2, down on 3, rest on 4, up, hold, down, rest." She counted like a metronome for courage. Malik fit the spacer to Zara's mouth. The hiss of medicine kissed that rhythm. The kitten quieted to a thread. The thread thickened. Across the room, the teacher held the class with stories about how clouds can be heavy and still float. Zara blinked tears out of her lashes. "Better," she whispered. "There you are," Malik breathed. Camille stayed in the kneel until Zara's shoulders dropped, until the colour returned to her mouth. When she finally stood, her knees popped. "Back row thunder," she managed. Zara grinned, the kind that stitches a person back together. "Thank you. Thank you," Camille said, and meant, "for letting me sit close to the thing that matters." After the applause and the cookies that tasted like triumph wrapped in plastic, they met under a poster of the water cycle. The arrows went up and down, relentless as rent. You didn't have to, Malik started. I wanted to, she said. I wanted to be where breath was happening. He exhaled. That fund, he said. It reached us. I don't have words past that. Then keep your breath, she said, a little fierce. Use it for her. He studied her. The woman in the conference room had been glass and edge. This one had carpet burns on her knees and glitter on her sleeve. Board went how, he asked. They hired Monday, she said, attempting a smile. An independent review. Monday is a lifetime in the wrong hands. Then we build a bridge they can't pull down in 3 days, she said. Numbers, stories, names if people will let us share them. My name, he said, surprising himself. You can use mine, just not hers. Never hers, she said, certain. His phone vibrated. Nathan's name flashed on Camille's screen at the same moment. They both answered the world at once. Nathan didn't waste words. He leaked, Camille. There's a post live, photos of the pharmacy, a redacted screenshot of an email to you. They're calling it a slush fund and a liaison with a former employee. Malik's screen showed the same headline from a local blog that liked blood. CEO's secret tab funds, ex-reports child, is quiet hour just cover? The photo of Camille at the counter had been cropped to insinuation. The redacted email still held enough to pierce. Breath, child, policy as weapon. No names. Enough smoke to sell fire. It's already trending, Nathan said. Legal wants you back. Emergency session. 45 minutes. Outside the school, a van with a station logo rolled to the curb like a storm that had heard its cue. A woman hopped out with a mic and eyes hunting. Miss Stone, she called. Care to comment on directing company resources toward a former employee's family? Parents looked up, then looked again. Heads turned. Phones rose. The air around Zara thinned in that specific way crowds thin air. Malik stepped instinctively, putting his body between his daughter and the circumference of strangers. Zara's small hand found his and squeezed hard. Camille moved with them, shoulder to shoulder, and lifted her chin. Ask me, she said to the reporter, voice level. Do not film a child. Then confirm, the reporter pressed, a shark in shoes. Did you or did you not set up a fund to benefit Mr. Carter after he emailed you? Camille's phone buzzed again. Board online in 40. We need you now. She could see her car 2 blocks down, the tower 5 miles away, the boardroom 40 minutes out. She could also see a girl in a purple coat, counting the points of an invisible star with her thumb. She put a hand out like you do when you mean to stop a thing without touching it. Not her, she said again, to the reporter, to the world. Then to Malik, lower. I have to go. I know, he said, and even as his jaw locked, there was something like respect in the way he made space. Go build the bridge. Will you? She started, and then realized what she was asking and how big it was. He nodded once. I'll walk her home the long way. Camille turned to the camera and made a decision that would either save her leadership or end it. Yes, she said, clear. I started a community fund at a neighborhood pharmacy called the Quiet Hour. It uses my money, not the company's. It pays for medicine while assistance is pending. If the board removes me for believing breath comes before profit, that is a decision I will accept. But I won't apologize for keeping children out of our line of fire. The reporter opened her mouth for the next bite. Camille's phone rang. Naomi again. We've called an emergency vote, the general counsel said. Morrison has the numbers if you're not in the room. Camille looked at Malik and Zara, their edges, their center, and at the van, and at the star folded in her pocket. On my way, she said, and started toward the street as the camera pivoted, the crowd's attention tilting with it, the city pulling breath, as if the next hour might decide who got to keep it. Security met Camille at the curb and threaded her through the cameras with a hand that looked like apology. The elevator ride felt like a held note. Nathan waited at 37, phone to his ear, eyes saying what words couldn't on a day that had already said too much. Naomi's on, he murmured, pressing the conference line into her hand. They're seated. Any updates? Camille asked, walking fast. Morrison wants a summary removal. Says optics 3 times a minute. Ops is grumbling on cue. Legal's holding the line. She smoothed her jacket without looking down and slipped the paper star into her pocket. It bent once and settled there like a heartbeat. The boardroom was already half electric. Morrison rose slightly, satisfied to have witnesses. Miss Stone, he said, as if greeting an intruder, We'll start with your admission on camera that you established a fund benefiting a former report. I established a community ledger at a neighborhood pharmacy, Camille said, taking her seat. It uses my personal funds. It is administered by the pharmacy. It restricts to pediatric steroids while assistance is pending. Legal reviewed the structure. Legal can repeat their opinion, Morrison said, but the street has already rendered one. We are stewards of shareholder trust. Naomi, the general counsel, spoke without heat. We have no evidence of corporate funds, no quid pro quo. The only certain breach today is the one created by the person who leaked an internal image and a redacted private email to a blog minutes before this meeting. Morrison spread his hands. Transparency, Naomi. Illegally obtained transparency is still a crime, she said. We'll circle back to that. Camille slid a packet to each director. Metrics on 10 Quiet are in your hands, she said. Throughput up 18%, defects down 22, tickets down 19, dovetail shipped early, no impact to burn. We've got manager testimony unpolished. She nodded to Nathan. He tapped the tablet. A manager appeared on the wall, hair messy, eyes tired and alive. I used to spend 2 hours a day triaging noise, she said. 10 Quiet gave me 12 minutes of actual leadership in each hour. I spent it unblocking humans. My team stopped flinching. The ops liaison, Leach, shifted. We did see a hiccup Tuesday, he said, and Morrison's mouth curved in victory until Leach added, reluctantly, from an alert storm we would have had anyway. The quiet block contained it. Less thrash. Jennifer Walsh made a note with something like relief. And the fund? Camille kept her voice even. I could look you in the eye and tell you this was a grand moral experiment. It wasn't. It was a bandage a citizen could apply. What we institutionalize here is different. Clear criteria, capped grants, published ledgers, no names outside HR and legal. We will count outcomes as strictly as we count dollars. Morrison lifted a printout, enjoying his theatre. And the email that began this, your careful redactions couldn't hide the language. Policy as weapon. Breath. You admit you were influenced by a personal narrative. Yes, Camille said simply. I was influenced by remembering that our spreadsheets are made of people. Remembering didn't make me sloppy. It made me precise about which problems we're actually paid to solve. He pressed his advantage. And is the author of that email in the room? His eyes flicked toward the glass as if expecting a headline to walk through it. Nathan startled at the knock. He opened the door a sliver, conferred, then looked to Camille. He's in the hall, Nathan said. He asked if you wanted him to leave, or to listen, or to speak. Camille held Morrison's gaze and then addressed the room. Invite him in to listen, she said. If the board wants to hear from him, they can ask. Malik entered in the jacket that had seen too many bus seats, standing straighter than the room's money. He took a chair in the back near the ficus and folded his hands, the way he had in the conference room weeks ago when he'd been told to pack his life in 30 minutes. Morrison pounced. Mr. Carter, since you've joined us, tell us, are you and Miss Stone in a personal relationship? Malik didn't look at Camille. No, he said. His voice filled the room without pushing. She fired me. Later, she read my words. That's our only relationship. Do you benefit financially from her continued leadership? My daughter breathes because a ledger exists, he said. It would help her either way. I am not on your payroll. I am not asking to be. Then why are you here? Morrison demanded. Because you've spent an hour talking about optics, Malik said, and I thought someone should talk about air. No one called him out of order. Even Morrison felt the room tilt. I wrote to say this, Malik continued. You can run a company like a lung or like a locked chest. 10 Quiet gave your people an exhale. A fund gave parents a night where they weren't counting how many times a child would cough. You can rename these things, attach policies and graphs. Fine. But when you vote, know what you are voting on. Not Camille Stone's image, where the people who build your profit get to be human while they do it. He turned his hands palm up. You asked if I benefit. Yes. My life benefits when leaders choose steel that bridges instead of cages. So does yours, even if your lungs don't notice. He stopped there. He did not say his daughter's name. He did not cry. He did not give them a picture to pass around. He returned to quiet and let the room decide what to do with it. Naomi cleared her throat. Before we entertain a motion, 2 procedural notes, she said. 1. We have traced the leak of internal imagery to Mr. Morrison's office. 2. Under our ethics policy, releasing incomplete, contextless company material to media in the midst of a vote is grounds for censure and removal. The oxygen changed. Morrison's posture snapped taut. This is a witch hunt. It's an audit, Naomi said, and you failed it. David Chen's voice was mild as winter light. I move that we commission an independent review of 10 Quiet and the Hardship Fund to report in 2 weeks. I move that Miss Stone remain as CEO during that review. I move we accept legal's recommendation to censure Mr. Morrison for breach and request his resignation. Second, Jennifer said. Morrison laughed without mirth. You're letting sentiment run the board. Numbers, Jennifer said, tapping the packet, and the rare luxury of clarity. Vote, Naomi said. Hands rose. 7, 8, 9. Morrison stayed down, white-knuckled on his folder. Motion carries, Naomi said. Mr. Morrison, HR will meet you regarding exit protocol. Miss Stone, you remain CEO pending review. The noise that followed was the quiet kind. Papers stacked, throats cleared, chairs pushed back with more gentleness than they had been pulled forward. Camille exhaled slowly and didn't hide that she was doing it. She looked to Malik. He nodded once, the way men nod at graves and weddings. In the hallway, he waited until Nathan passed, until Naomi ducked into counsel, until the door's hush made them citizens again. You didn't owe me that, Camille said. The room, the words. I didn't give you them, he said. I gave them to the people you'll be accountable to if you stay. I can live with you failing because a better idea replaced yours. I didn't want to live with you gone because someone sold a story with missing pages. She studied his face and saw the fatigue, the resolve, the stubborn guard that wasn't going to move just because she had learned to count to 6. You told me once if I wanted to build a people function that survives men like Morrison, I should call. I did, he said cautiously. I'm calling, she said. Not to wipe a debt, to build the thing. What thing? A people systems group with its own budget, reporting line that isn't finance, authority to set standards that protect thinking, public metrics, attrition, rehire cost, defect rate tied to interruptions. We'll write the policy hinges together so legal can love them. He didn't answer for a breath, then 2. Conditions, he said. First, no performance theatre. If it doesn't work, we say it and kill it. Second, you don't use me as armor in rooms like that. I'm not a shield. Third, we keep kids out of cameras. Done, she said, immediate. And I keep my hours around a 7-year-old's lungs. If that means I'm in at 10 after a bad night, you build that into the design. That's the design, she said. Bridges you can walk with a child in your arms. He nodded, something like belief flickering and deciding to stay. Then I'll help you build it, he said. As a contractor for now. Review me like anyone else. Fire me if I fail my own math. She almost smiled. Deal. He looked toward the elevator, toward a city that had started to breathe in small, stubborn ways. I have to get back, he said. There's a science fair ribbon waiting. Tell her I clapped, Camille said. Thunder. She'll ask you to prove it. He half-turned. Bring the star. 2 weeks later, the independent review came back in ink as clear as math. Productivity up without overtime creep, defects down without quality theatre, help tickets down without triage bloat. The report on the fund was drier. Criteria tight, disbursements transparent, no evidence of directed benefit. Shareholders were, embarrassingly for Morrison's thesis, calm. The board ratified 10 Quiet as policy. 10 minutes the top of the hour, managers measured on shielding, not spying. The Hardship Fund became the Quiet Hour Fund company-wide, seeded from profits and matched by voluntary employee donation, administered by HR and legal, with quarterly reporting. A small plaque went up in the lobby that read simply, breath first, then build. People Systems stood itself up in a corner of the 31st floor overlooking the shipping cranes. Malik wrote a 1-page doctrine and taped it to the glass. 1. Brains need oxygen. 2. Panic is not a strategy. 3. Policy is a hinge, not a weapon. 4. Measure what you say you value. 5. Keep kids out of cameras. He hired Pavani away from a competitor. She cackled when she saw her offer letter because it valued her time like she valued her teams. Lena from the pharmacy came to a lunch and learn and explained the ledger like it was both logistics and love. Engineers started taping paper stars to their monitors. Not cute, not corporate. Reminders. Nathan's inbox filled with fewer emergencies and more decisions. On Family Day in spring, the lobby's plaque found itself haloed by a constellation. Children had been given glitter and permission. Zara found the place where the light hit and positioned her star, so the points made shadows on the floor. Camille crouched beside her in a dress that wasn't armor. "Water is brave today," Zara reported, looking up at the blue glass. "It is," Camille said. "So are you." "Daddy says brave is just remembering how to breathe when you forget." She cocked her head. "You don't forget as much." "I have reminders," Camille said, and patted her pocket where a creased star lived now like an organ. Above them, the tower reflected a sky that had stopped threatening rain. Inside, monitors beeped their soft, indifferent beeps. In conference rooms, people moved sticky notes in ways that, for once, felt like building and not panic. On the 31st floor, a doctrine on glass caught the afternoon light. Camille stood with Malik at the window after the families left. The city spread like circuitry and river. "You were a locked chest," he said, not unkind. "What changed?" "A child told me grown-ups forget how to breathe," she said, and then she counted with me until I remembered. He nodded. "That's her way. And now," Camille said, "it has to be ours." She glanced at him. "We'll build it so it doesn't shatter if I step away someday. Bridges shouldn't depend on the first person who walked them. Then we'll teach other people to count," he said. They stood without touching, watching cranes lift containers, watching ferries move like thoughts across water that was very much alive. Somewhere below, in a room with paper clouds, a teacher was telling a new class that air can turn into a story if you give it a little help. On the 37th floor, a star lay on a CEO's desk. On the south side, an inhaler lay on a nightstand like a small, stubborn promise. Between them stretched a city that had learned a little, to put breath before profit and to call that move by its old, unfancy name. Kindness counted to 4 and back to 6 until it held.